right. Well, good morning. Welcome to our morning devotions. This is episode 301, and I entitled this "The Death of Saul." And this is Second Chronicles, or excuse me, First Chronicles, chapter 10. And it's interesting. As I said, the chronicler is selective in what he deals with, and we're seeing it right here. So we just went through these chronologies, and now we're in chapter 10 of First Chronicles, and it begins in the parallel passage is the last chapter of First Samuel 31. It begins with the death of Saul. That's where the historical record begins, which discounts everything. I mean, doesn't discount, but it leaves out everything before that. The whole first book of First Samuel is omitted in First Chronicles, except the last chapter, and that is the death of Saul. And the reason for that is, as I said before, the focus is going to be on David. It's always been on David. So we don't. The point that Saul is the first king of Israel, as far as the chronicler is concerned, is not that important. David is important because David is a man after God's own heart. David is the one whom God deals with and blesses. All right, David is the one that gathers all the material necessary for Solomon to build the temple. David is the one that is the psalmist, and so Saul. We're just seeing this, so to speak, as a platform to jump off to talk about David. So we know that Saul is the first king. So the chronicler is going to mention him in one chapter, and then we're going to get into David being the king because Saul is off the scene. Now David's going to be the king. I just want you to see what we're looking at is what the chronicler is emphasizing. Yesterday I said he's emphasizing the tribe of Judah, and then like an offshoot of that, the descendants or the ancestry of David, and then there was that long chapter on the Levites, worship of God and the king. These are the things that are most important. And so here we are. We're just going to talk about Saul in one chapter. Then we're going to get into David's reign. We're going to see Saul, get him off the scene, and then go to David. So we're reading here in 1 Chronicles 10, which I said is in 1 Samuel 31. It's like he's just disregarding all of 1 Samuel. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard after Saul and after his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Ahinadab and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. I mean, this I remember when we went through that in First Samuel. I mean, just a terrible thing because especially Jonathan. I mean, he's a valiant man. I mean, but the Philistines are overcoming him because his dad has departed from the will of God. And it's right here in verse 13 at the end of this chapter. There's two specific reasons that are cited here by the chronicler on why this happened. And but here's the death of Jonathan. And it says in verse 3, and the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was wounded of the archers. So when you read it in 1 Samuel, this is how he comes to his end. And Saul said to his armor bearer, draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. So Saul took a sword and fell on it. And that is sometimes spoken of as suicide. But I argued this back in 1 Samuel that he is dying. He's going to die. This wound is going to kill him, and what he is concerned about is being, tortured and those things. In addition to that, by the Philistines, and so I think there's a difference between being on the battlefield and being almost dead and saying, "Don't prolong this," and suicide. Someone that's healthy that does something contrary. So I think we have to give that a little space here. But it says Saul. So Saul took a sword and he fell on it, which just hastened the inevitable. That's the point I'm making. It hastened the inevitable, and so In verse 5 it says, and when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise on the sword and died, because it was his responsibility to keep the king alive. So he has failed in his one responsibility, and that is to keep the king alive. And in that failure, that was suicide. He took his life because he isn't injured, but he is not going to he's not going to survive this. I mean, the Philistines are still coming, whether or not, in my hypothetical issue here, he was going to survive that. It was another thing to discuss. But the armor bearer, he took his life because he had failed in his one commission, which was to guard the king, and he didn't. And it says in verse 6, so Saul died, and his 3 sons and all his house died together. That is Saul's family. That's what that means. All his boys, that is his offspring, everybody, they just passed away. That was the end of it. And when all the men of Israel saw that were there in the valley, saw that the king and his sons were dead, and Saul and his sons were dead, then they forsook their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. Because the Philistine army during this time is the most powerful army there is. That's why when we talk about Samson, and everybody says all these things about Samson, and I know he's got this really checkered history, except whenever I say Samson, remember, Samson's name is in Hebrews 11. He's in the roll call of faith, so you have to factor that all in as you read that in Judges. He is in the roll call of faith with Moses and Abraham and Noah and Samson and Isaiah. All right, so just remember that. The point here is the Philistines were just this formidable foe, and Samson is that judge put in place to destroy Philistines. And you say, what was his job? And his job was to kill Philistines. That's what he was supposed to do. And so all through the description of Samson, he's killing Philistines, which is what he is there to do. And too much focus is, I mean, not too much, but you can focus on his own life. But as a judge, he served God well because his job was to kill Philistines. Okay, there you go. So let's keep after it here. Verse 8, and it came to pass on the morrow when the Philistines came to strip the slain, because what they're going to do, there's going to be value out there. There's going to be the armor and anything of any value on the dead. This is going to be the spoils of war. When they came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. So they found the king and his boys. And when they had stripped him, they took his head and his armor and sent it into the land of the Philistines round about to carry tidings unto their idols and to the people. I put a note in my margin here. They're going to carry tidings to idols. They're going to bring a message to their idols that they won the day. This is how backwards men can be, all right? Because these Philistines are just men. But they're going to talk to an idol which is dead. It's just made out of something, wood overlaid with gold or whatever. And they're going to talk to this thing and say, we won the victory because of you. Yeah, that's how far men will go to depart from the true and living God. They will actually start talking to sticks and stones and report back to a stick and a stone. So don't ever discount how far afield and how upside down men can be, because that's what they do. We have it right here. They're going to report back to their idol that it's because of this dead stick or this dead stone that they have assigned deity to, that they're going to report back to it and say, you won the victory for us, you stick or stone that we worship. I'm telling you, just consider that these events, these historic events, all are meant here to indicate how backwards man can become, all right? Because they're going to report back to their idol and to the people. So it says they took his head, that is, they beheaded him, because this is a vicious worldview that they have there in the Philistine Empire. They took his head and his armor and sent it into the land of the Philistines round about, that to demonstrate that they defeated the Israelis and killed their king. And they put his armor in the house of their gods and fastened his head in the temple of Dagon. So you say that's pretty gruesome, but that is just kind of standard fare. All right. They were still doing this kind of stuff in the Tower of London. All right. In the Reformation days, chopping off heads and sticking them on pikes. All right. This is not news. Now, for us, we say, well, this is gruesome. But the way things were handled in days gone by would turn all of our stomachs today. It was barbaric compared to our standards. But in these days, it was just expected. You see, what I meant to generate by saying that is simply to say that we are a product of our cultures. These people weren't. I mean, really upset about it. It was a sign of victory. And if we saw heads on pikes right now, I mean, everybody would be screaming. I mean, people right now can't tolerate anything. Where children and women and all those people of the Philistine Empire didn't think a thing about it other than their sons who went off to war, beat the Israelis, and they won the victory, and their boys came home safe after the battle, and there's the head of the enemy in his armor, and their false god won the day. So yes, we're on the right side of things. There's a good Philistine mom and a good Philistine dad talking about how well that went for them. You see, this is in every culture is like that. I just want you to know, because the Philistines and us are not that far apart. All right, that we have in us more iron, beloved, than we'll give ourselves credit for, is the point. All right, to tolerate things. And I guess I should put a plug in here. I haven't said anything lately about it. If you haven't been to D.C. and go to the Holocaust Museum, you should. All right, you need to go. All right, to see what man will do to other men. And this is far more recent than this event, but nothing much has changed. Okay, in the hearts of the deceitful hearts of man. So it goes on here. Verse 11, and when all Jabesh Gilead heard all that the Philistines had done to Saul, that beheaded him, and it tells us here, they arose, all the valiant men, and took away the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons, because they hung them on the wall, and brought them to Jabesh, and buried their bones under the oak in Jabesh, and fasted 7 days to purify themselves after touching those dead bodies. But the point is, they took this terrible example of victory that was, they had just hung on the walls, and they went by night, they took it down, and they buried their king and his sons. And then here it is, verse 13. Why did this all happen? So Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against the Lord. And there's two things here. Even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it. So, and then it says, and inquired not of the Lord, therefore he slew him. It says God slew him. He uses the Philistines to get it done. This is why we argue for secondary causes. God did not hit him with a lightning bolt, but he used the Philistine army to kill Saul because Saul transgressed. The two transgressions are, the first is back in 1 Samuel 15, where he's supposed to kill off all the Amalekites, kill off everything, and he brings home oxen and sheep and saves Agag alive, and tells Samuel and God that he's fulfilled God's will. And that's where Samuel says to obey is better than sacrifice, because he did not obey, he disobeyed, he rebelled against God. And so that is one example. And it's right there in that passage, because he does not fulfill the will of God in destroying the Amalekite army with its king and everything else, that Samuel tells Saul that the kingdom's going to be taken from you. So here it is, right at the end of 1 Chronicles chapter 10, that key point that sets up David coming to the throne. So that's the first one, all right? And the second is that he asked counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it. And that's in 1 Samuel 28, because he had forbidden anyone that dealt with necromancy or familiar spirits or speaking with demons. It drove them out of the land, but he disguises himself, if you remember, and he goes to the witch of Endor. We call her the witch of Endor, and he wants her to conjure up a spirit. And in the passage of scripture, it is cited that it is Samuel that comes up that speaks to him, but it talks here. It just says here that is a familiar spirit. And Turretin, Francis Turretin, the old reformer, said that it was not Samuel. All right, that it was a familiar spirit. That in the text it's just identified as Samuel, but because Saul inquired of a witch who dealt with demons for information about what was going to happen in the battle in which he's killed, and not God. God, on top of what he did, saying that the kingdom is already taken from you for disobeying what God told him about doing with the Amalekites. On top of that, this is another reason cited here why Saul is killed, and the explanation for this. There's lots in there. The secondary cause thing is really important because God is the one that takes the responsibility for it, but he does not do it directly. He does it through the Philistine army. It is God's judgment upon Jerusalem and Judah because they had forsaken the law, that God uses Babylon, a secondary cause, to destroy the city. But it is the hand of God in fulfillment to those prophecies that were made by Moses back in the Pentateuch. God uses secondary causes, and we see that principle laid out here. Behind it all is the hand of God. And then after Babylon destroys Jerusalem and takes the people of Israel into captivity, they are proud and they are boastful and they sing songs about them, and they talk about how mighty the power of Babylon is. And because of that, God sends the Medo-Persians to wipe them out. Again, uses a secondary cause. So we could say a secondary cause for the destruction of Jerusalem, a secondary cause for the destruction of Babylon, and then on and on. That's what we see. God uses other means to accomplish his will, and he's still doing that today. God uses secondary causes. When we talk about the preservation of God's word, I never argue that it's a miracle like a miracle that Christ did, but he uses secondary causes. He uses the nation of Israel. He uses the church. He uses weather. He uses everything to preserve the word of God. He uses the memory. He uses things that we're not aware of. We just have to trust him to believe that this is what's happening because his word says it is. So this is the way God works, and that's what we read here. And so verse 13, so Saul died for his transgression which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, when he said, kill all the Amalekites, which he kept not, because obedience is better than sacrifice, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it. That's 1 Samuel 15 and 1 Samuel 28. And then verse 14, and inquired not of the Lord. Therefore he slew him, and there's a secondary cause, and turned the kingdom unto David the son of Jesse. And that is the hand of God. Takes the first king out of the way, and that's why David did not touch the Lord's anointed. He says, I'm not going to touch the Lord's anointed. His men, on a couple occasions, they had a specific chance to kill Saul, and he doesn't. Because he said that's in the hand of God, and trusting the hand of God to get it done, David comes to the throne. And that's what we're going to begin reading about in verse 11, where David is made the king. All right. So a lot of stuff in there, especially when we see it within the broader context of comparing 1 Samuel and 1 Chronicles. Okay, it's Tuesday. Tonight is our second session of our canonicity class. It's at Peter Van Cleek Ministries if you want to watch it live, and it's also posted there. And I'm posting it other places as well. I'm going to try again to get it on Facebook Live. We'll see if I can figure that out. But go to YouTube at Peter Van Cleek Ministries, and that's where it will be posted. All right, that's tonight at 6 o'clock. And for those that are here in the greater Doug Spur, Hillsville area, it's at the Doug Spur Community Center on the corner of 221 Floyd Pike and Double Cabin Road. All right. Well, the Lord bless you. Have a great day, and I'll see you. Okay, we'll see you. Bye.